Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Orc shamans have gathered the winds of magic, and the rogue idol stalks the field as it prepares to face off against the Lizardmen. As we have Jar Jar Junks leading the Greenskins, and Pippington will be leading the Lizardmen. Now, for the Greenskin army, of course, there is that rogue idol going to be marching forward. He is going to be supported by a Goblin Great Shaman on his Arachnarok Spider, and that Great Shaman's going to be bringing Vindictive Glare. We have Itchy Nuisance, Gorkle Fix-It, as well as Arcane Conduit, and Don't Even Try It. Some nice spells to kind of debuff the opposing Lizardmen, kind of slow them down, reduce their abilities, and as well as that Vindictive Glare is good at doing some nice bit of damage to those large targets. There's also a Giant. Greenskins generally have a little bit of a hard time dealing with the big monsters of the Lizardmen, so the Rogue Idol, Ragnarok Spider, and the Giant should definitely make that a fair bit easier. Now, for the rest of the army, we do have some Orc Boys. We have some Black Orcs as well in that front line. We have the 8-Peak Loonies, Night Goblins ROR with their Fanatics, and then for some range support, we have some Orc Error Boys as well, and just some Goblin Spearmen on the far flanks. We do have some, I believe, some Forest Goblin Spider Riders on one side, and some Forest Goblin Spider Rider Archers with the Morgrub's Mangy Marauders. We got a little bit of range poison melee, and then we have some nice armor piercing damage from the Morgrub's Mangy Marauders coming in. And as for the Lizardmen, we have a very small front line. We have some Saurus Warriors, we have a couple of shields, and then the big meat and potatoes of this army is going to be Mazdamundi on Zlok with the Thunderous One and a Feral Carnosaur. Now, Lord Mazdamundi is going to be bringing his Bound Banishment. We have Apotheosis, Harmonic Convergent, giving a nice 24 melee attack and melee defense, as well as the Net of Amnentok. And he's also going to be bringing the Sunburst Standard of Hexoatl, going to be given a nice plus 12% in missile resistance and plus 9 melee defense, keeping all of those pesky Orc arrows a little bit on the lesser side. He is going to be foregoing his Greater Arcane Conduit. A lot of fun all across the map. But for the Flyers, we do have a couple of Pterodon Riders with Fire Leech Bolas. Not a pick you will commonly see. You will almost always see them with their poison, but they will have some flaming attacks. Now, maybe expecting to see some Trolls to get a little bit of extra damage against them, but they will be there nonetheless. They do have some Rock Drops to help kind of lessen the Greenskin army, and then we have some Ripperdactyl Riders as well, which are bonus versus infantry, armor piercing, but they are very much a glass cannon unit. They'll take quite a bit of damage themselves engaged in melee, but they can do some good damage nonetheless. But let's get things rolling, as both sides here going to be doing a little bit of skirmish to and fro as the big heavy hitters of the Lizardmen charge down the hill, leaving the rest of the Saurus Warriors kind of out and on the end. But we do have a Vindictive Glare going to be doing quite a bit of good damage, and the Orc Arrow Boys also going to be firing on in, looking to pepper these Pterodactyl Riders as best they can, while the Fire Leech Bolas do kind of fire in to the side of these Orc Boys. And the Greenskin Missile Cab going to be starting to return fire themselves, and we have a Bound Banishment going off into the middle of the Orc Arrow Boys formation here. Going to be doing some pretty good damage there, disrupting them a bit and peeling them off. Eliminating as much of the range support as the Lizardmen can. Going to be rather helpful indeed. However, the Lord Mazdamundi and the Thunderous One going to be pulling themselves back a little bit. They both do have a nice little bit of range attack, so they'll be providing some bit of poison to the Greenskin forces. But right now, Morgrub's Mangy Marauders and the Forest Goblin Spider Riders are doing some pretty decent work against these Pterodon Riders, getting them down pretty low themselves. But the Ripperdactyl Riders going to be coming on in. They have Gorkle Fix-It, so they'll be slowing them down, but they are going to be terrified as all of the big monsters do come in, and they will be pushing them back, routing them, doing a ton of damage in the process. Looking to be a little bit of a risky pick here, trying to jump on top of these Orc Arrow Boys, but they will not be able to finish them off, as both of the Pterodon Riders do kind of hang overhead. All of these range units going to be firing on in, and now the Lizardmen infantry is going to be smashing up against the Greenskins, and the Thunderous One going to be getting some work in, trying to deal with these Black Orcs, and Mazdamundi is going to be taking a little Vindictive Glare right into the rear as he does kind of pull back into those cycle charging, as he does have a very nice, actually his charge bonus is 70, and when he is up on Zlok, that is going to be doing quite a bit of damage, getting a nice little charge right into these Black Orcs. The Black Orcs are a little bit separated from the rest of the Greenskin formation, allowing the Thunderous One and Lord Mazdamundi to be doing some pretty good work. But we do have the Goblin Great Shaman, though, good, but there is going to be an overcasted net of Amnentok here, going to be going down, netting down all of the very large characters for the Lizardmen, or for the Greenskins here. And it's going to be allowing the Thunderous One and Lord Mazdamundi to really clean up shop on the fringes of this formation, making sure that that giant, the Arachnarok Spider, and the Rogue Idol are kind of stuck in this engagement here, with the Feral Carnosaur as well. Going to be doing some decent damage to that Goblin Great Shaman, and the Goblin does have to be a little bit careful. I don't believe he brought the Crown of Command, because he does have pretty low base leadership when he's out on his Spider, and having all these very large targets is going to be a bit of a threat. But the Feral Carnosaur are going to be pulling out, maybe thinking about chasing down these Black Orcs as they are going to be routing, and that out fringe of Greenskin infantry going to be getting broken down, and the Fire Leech Bola is going to be doing some decent work, also cleaning up these Orc Arrow boys, but they will be pulling out as they are getting very, very low themselves. So the Thunderous One looking to clean up what they started, going to be trying to do some nice bit of range shots into these the mobile skirmish cav of the Greenskins, while the Goon Squad of the Greenskins going to be looking for Lord Mazdamundi here, chasing him down. Going to be trying to get some damage. The Squircle Fix-It does go down, reducing his speed and charge bonus, but the Apotheosis does go off on Mazdamundi himself. Going to be healing himself up as the range fire, though we do have the Ripperdactyl Rhinos returning to the field once again, though the Arachnarok Spider is getting a little bit low. He's getting down to about half health. But with both the Giant and the Rogue Idol to support him, he doesn't have too much to fear, though he is going to starting to continue to take damage as the Fire Breach Bolas are able to just kind of fire away all of the range support pretty far away at this point. The Forest Goblin Spider Riders, none of the poison support is close by. Pretty much just have to rely on the Goblin Great Shaman to kind of continue to work things up, but he does have poison up with all of those nice ranged attacks coming from the top, but he is wavering right now, as I said, that low leadership from before, but he gets a nice Vindictive Glare in right into the flank of the Feral Carnosaur, doing a lot of damage, and it is getting very low, as is Lord Mazdamundi. And the Goblin Great Shaman is able to at least stabilize for a bit, but these nice little charge from the Feral Carnosaur and the Ripperdactyl Rhinos at the same time might be just enough, and it is enough to break that Goblin Great Shaman, even though he is still surrounded by some very strong units, and having him pull out, especially with the mobility advantage of the the Lizardmen with the Ripperdactyl Rhinos. And if Ripperdactyls are wise, now would be the good time to kind of pull out, allow that Arachnarok Spider to kind of get some distance between the Giant and the Rogue Idol, and then resume the chase in earnest. But the rest of the Greenskin infantry, or the Lizardmen infantry, is doing a lot of damage to that Greenskins. Black Orcs did come back, but they are quickly getting pushed off, and with the loss of a lot of, pretty much, or all of the support of the infantry, the big single entities are going to have a bit of a hard time dealing with the Lizardmen troops. But another Vindictive Glare arcing its way, just going a little high. That Feral Carnosaur, had those shots connected, it very easily could have either just outright killed it or routed it off the field, being so close to that white line. But the Goblin Great Shaman going to be escorted back by that Giant, not able to get chased off by those Ripperdactyl Riders. They did not resume their pursuit. The Thunderous One has used up all of its ammunition, so it isn't going to be able to provide that missile or that poison in melee. However, Lord Mazdamundi still has some left for him, but it is quite low himself, and that would be the loss of all of the poison that the Lizardmen do have, and definitely having some. But the Goblin Great Shaman getting very low, going to be routing again, as the Ripperdactyl Riders are actually doing some pretty decent damage, because Lord Mazdamundi was kind of facing the other way, and they are going to be pursuing that Goblin Great Shaman off the field if they can, though the charge of the Forest Goblin Spider Riders might be enough to keep them at bay. But these Ripperdactyl Riders do need to be a little careful. Their leadership has stabilized enough, so they shouldn't have to worry about that terror from the Goblin Great Shaman, but it is so low. It is down to just 443 health, and with all of these units escorting it off the field, even these Forest Goblin Spider Riders aren't going to be enough to bring that thing back, as the Greenskins, though, are still sitting very, very strong. I mean, the Rogue Idol is just very, very high on leadership, and the balance of power definitely favors the Greenskin army here, as the single entities for the Lizardmen are getting very low. And the Arachnarok Spider, though, does finally drop to the Riperdactyl Riders, and they are going to be peeled off as well, and a nice banishment right on top of Lord Mazdamundi, going to be clearing out all of the skirmish cav for the Greenskins, and they just kind of spread and go their separate ways so close to the edge of the map. They'll be routing right on off, removing that support as well. So all the poison is pretty much going to be gone from both sides, especially now that Lord Mazdamundi used up the last of its ammunition, though we do have Force Goblin Spider Riders are going to be able to return. They are quite low, and even the more Grubs Mangy Marauders, but they have used up all of their ammo as on top of that. But it is going to be an infantry versus the single entity, so there is still some of the Orc Era Boys left. They can provide a nice little bit of ranged support, though Mazdamundi is giving that 12% missile resist to all units around him. The Rogue Idol and Giant going to be duking it out, though. The Giant and the Rogue Idol, especially the Giant, has very good base leadership. The Rogue Idol, though, generally you do not see it get taken out in the fight here. It will almost usually end up routing, but now that the Lizardmen don't really have a whole lot of stuff to kind of chip away at what is left of the Greenskins, that Rogue Idol is going to be doing quite well for himself, engaged in melee, as everything just going to be washing up against it at this point, as the Greenskins, though, their only way back is going to be to slowly cycle charge in with the very high charge bonus of Lord Mazdamundi, getting a nice side charge into that Giant, trying to peel things off bit by bit. But they do need to be very careful, because the more damage they do to that Rogue Idol, the less armor it does get, but the more damage it will be dealing in return. And the Giant does have some massive melee attack as well, but able to kind of peel off the last of the mobility are these Pterodon Riders. And these archers, though, going to be able to start peppering things in, and not a whole lot can effectively chase anything down. The Pterodon Riders aren't going to be able to get too much closer to it, but the Rogue Idol is getting very, very low. A single rear charge from Lord Mazdamundi might be enough to break that Rogue Idol, and if they do lose any of these single entities, they will be very hard-pressed to return to this fight, especially considering they're so close to the white line, and the mobility, or I guess enough of the mobility, the Source Warriors and the single entity should be enough to kind of pursue, as they are just kind of slowly waddling their way towards Mazdamundi, trying to chase him down, but they will return their attention to all of the infantry, and they are able to rout off the Pterodon Riders. And the Thunderous One is also getting quite low, but here comes a rear charge from Mazdamundi on Zlak, right into the rear of the Rogue Idol. Going to be doing a bit of chip damage here and there, and that Rogue Idol would very much like to avert his attention to Lord Mazdamundi before he does end routing, because he's getting very low. Another charge in from the Thunderous One, and both of these single entities need to focus their attention on Mazdamundi and that Thunderous One. And Thunderous One, just a single hit might be enough to rout it off, as two of the very big single entities, and down goes the Thunderous One to the fist of the Rogue Idol. But the Rogue Idol does rout right after that blow, and it is now Mazdamundi versus the Giant, though both sides, the balance power is still a little bit in the Greenskins' favor, as Mazdamundi is very, very low, and the last of the ammunition is being used up by the Orc Era Boys. And luckily for the Greenskins, the Rogue Idol does start to rout the long way around, but the Giant does get knocked down by Mazdamundi. And here is going to be a fight of titans here in the late game, as both sides going to be engaging blows, hit landing by the Giant. The Mazdamundi is able to stagger the Giant itself, and he's getting very, very low, cold-blooded, keeping his leadership as high as he can. And the hit from the Giant does miss, and the Rogue Idol is back. He is going to be charging into the fight once again, but we do have the return of some infantry for the Lizardmen, going to be able to pull the attention of the Giant off, and the last of the ammunition, I believe, is going to be used up by these Orc Era Boys, and now they are just going to be able to commit to melee at this point. Mazdamundi focusing his charge on the Rogue Idol, getting a nice little hit off, and going to be routing off the Rogue Idol once again, and might be enough to just finish it off. And then turn his attention to the Giant, who's also getting very, very low. And if the Giant does go, and you can see that balance power just kind of wavering back and forth here, as all the single entities are just so low at this point. Giant is able to rout off both of these Saurus Warriors just before it itself does rout, but Mazdamundi takes down the Rogue Idol, as the magic holding it together dissipates and it crumbles to the ground. And now Mazdamundi is going to be facing the Giant and these Orc Era Boys. The charge coming in, and which side is going to be able to pull through, but the Mazdamundi gets caught up on the Arachnarok Spider. He is wavering himself. He has a cold-blooded left. It might be enough to stabilize his leadership, and he tries to charge through because he knows he needs to deal with that giant, but he is getting so low. Both sides are on just slivers of HP at this point. Mazdamundi is wavering, but the giant does he go down? No, he just gets staggered, but he does rout, shatter, and die, and in the end, Mazdamundi, on just slivers of HP and his leadership is just so critically low, is able to finish off the Greenskin forces. Very, very close late game battle, as you had the Rogue Idol getting a Chevron, getting 1,700 in value. The Giant as well, 2,400, did quite well for itself. And then the rest of the forces, Morgrub's Mangy Marauders, also just plucking away at the very large targets with their armor-piercing values, getting a ton of damage throughout, using up all their ammunition. It's very high value there. Usually you don't see it getting quite that much, but with how many very expensive targets were on the field, it definitely was able to flourish in this engagement. Rest of the Greenskin army, even the Orc Arrow Boys, were able to do some pretty decent work. The other one, not so much. Black Orcs, unfortunately, I think the funds would probably have been better spent just getting a little bit more of that frontline infantry, and they were also pretty spread out from the rest of the monster squad of the Greenskins earlier on, kind of making it causing them to be a little bit isolated, get focused down by both Mazdamundi and the Thunderous One, so they really weren't able to get their value. And 8-peak loonies usually perform fairly decently themselves. I don't know if I saw any of the fanatics being cast. And then even the Goblin Great Shaman had some very nice vindictive glares throughout, and Gorkle Fixit was able to kind of slow things down, keep things close by, and allowing all of the large targets to do a ton of damage. But unfortunately, with its low leadership, it kind of was its final crux, as it did get taken out of the fight before the final monster mash really went down. And then as for the Lizardmen army, the Thunderous One, Mazdamundi, and the Feral Carnosaur did some decent work. Feral Carnosaur only getting about 1,300. Both of the two Stegs did a lot better in that regard. And then even the Rippertactyl Riders, despite taking a ton of damage early on from the archers of the Greenskins, were still able to rack up 1,500 in value, especially against like the chasing or the routing Goblin Great Shaman, who was really able to rack up that damage. And really kind of draw it out. And the infantry as well traded very effectively into the Greenskin forces that were brought, and definitely having them in the late game, having that infantry support with the single entities was definitely a very good plus for that Lizardman army. But such a very close fight. It was just a single hit from going either way in that late game. Giant, had it not gotten knocked down at the end there, it maybe would have been able to stay on his feet long enough. But yeah, that was just such a close game. You don't really find them much closer than that one, as the Lizardmen do pull through in the end, and a very fun match. And I do hope you all enjoyed the video, and as always, have a good one.